Today we have very interesting topics and equally interesting, very learned speakers. I welcome the chairperson of the first session, Dr. Ruma Rai. Ma'am is senior consultant at Max Multispeciality Hospital, Noida, and she's ex-professor, Lady Hardinge Medical College, Delhi. And I don't think anyone from LHMC who doesn't love her and who hasn't been taught by her. So I welcome Dr. Ruma Rai. Dr. Ruma Rai, please.
So should we start the meeting?
Yes, yes. You will welcome the speaker, Dr. Jyoti Agarwal. In your own words, we can put the CV also. Dr. Jyoti, please start sharing.
Very small, studying in Hardinge, and she's excellent human being and an excellent, I should say, and she's senior consultant director, Life Care Center, and IVF, infertility and ultrasound is her area of interest. And she's president of the DGF Feast, certified trainer for infertility, IVF and ultrasound. I mean, I really have no words. I really in awe with my student, Dr. Jyoti Agarwal.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your kind words. I'll just start sharing my screen. Just a minute, Dr. Deepti. Vikrant, please allow me to share my screen. See, the slides are not moving, Vikrant. Thank you, Dr. Ruma Rai, ma'am, so much for the kind words. I'm humbled. And we start a presentation without any delay. Today, the topic given to me is epilepsy and pregnancy and its management. This is second in the series of medical disorders in pregnancy that we are going to start with. Am I visible and audible?
Yes. Yeah. Your slide is...
Both are done.
Both are done. It is one of the commonest chronic neurological disorders to complicate pregnancy. It is defined as a paroxysmal disorder of the central nervous system with an abnormal neuronal discharge with or without loss of consciousness. Epilepsy complicates 1 in 200 pregnancies, making an incidence of 0.5%. We are all familiar with the classification. It may be partial or generalized. I am not going into the details. We will stress more on its management. There is a term like gestational epilepsy. That means the seizures occurring for the very first time during pregnancy. Fortunately, it is not very common. It may extend beyond pregnancy also. What is important is to know the patient can have single or multiple seizures which can occur in one or more of their pregnancies. The cause of epilepsy in most of the cases is idiopathic and no underlying cause is found. But important thing here is to remember is 30% of these patients may have a family history of epilepsy. Epilepsy can also be secondary to previous surgery due to the cerebral hemisphere or intracranial mass lesions which are likely to enlarge during pregnancy like meningiomas and arteriovenous malformations. This should always be considered if the first seizure occurs in pregnancy. In most women, pregnancy does not affect the frequency of the seizures, but however, in good 35% of patients, the frequency of seizures increases. In 50%, it remains unchanged, and for reasons unknown, in 15%, the frequency may decrease also. Increased frequency during pregnancy is probably due to subtherapeutic levels of drugs, which may be due to increased intravascular volume during pregnancy, thus lowering the serum drug levels. It may be because of increased renal clearance. It may be because of induction of liver and placental enzymes, increasing the drug metabolism. Nausea and vomiting associated in pregnancy may further decrease the drug levels. Decreased gastrointestinal motility and absorption of the drug also decreases the drug levels. Poor compliance with the patient and self-discontinuation due to the fear of teratogenesis may be another cause. So now coming to the risk associated with epilepsy and pregnancy, the highest risk time is the peripartum period. 3.5% of pregnancies are complicated by intrapartum seizures. Patient is unlikely to have seizures in pregnancy, probably if she is seizure-free for many years. But she is likely to deteriorate in pregnancy if she is a poorly controlled epilepsy patient, if her frequency of seizures is more than once per month or she has multiple seizures type. Fortunately, no adverse effect of single seizure on the fetus is seen. The fetus is relatively resistant to short episodes of hypoxia. However, fetal bradycardia may be seen during and after a maternal tonic-clonic convulsion. What is more important is to understand the increased risk of congenital abnormalities in a patient of epilepsy who is on drugs, fetal growth restriction, oligohydramnios, and maybe IUD. Coming to its management. The aims of the treatment are threefold. We definitely want a good seizure control, antepartum, intrapartum, and in the postpartum period, we want to prevent obstetric complications, and we want to ensure an adequate neonatal outcome. Management starts with pre-conception counseling, no doubt. Pre-pregnancy counseling is very important for epileptic mothers, as they should be counseled not to conceive unless their seizures are well under control. Epilepsy is not a contraindication for pregnancy. And if there are any issues concerning fertility, remember the association between sodium valproate, weight gain, and PCOS. Fortunately, valproate is not used these days. Women should be counseled about the benefits of adequate control of epilepsy so that we have a good compliance from her side. Effects of anti-epileptic drugs on the fetus and risk of epilepsy in the offspring, which is about 4% if one parent has epilepsy, 10% if one parent and one sibling are affected, and it increases to 15% if both parents have epilepsy. But at the same time, she should be counseled and reassured that over 90% of women with epilepsy will have good outcomes. Folic acid 5 milligrams should be taken each day preconceptionally 3 months prior, especially by women who are taking valproate and carbamazepine. It is the vitamin of pregnancy. We can only consider withdrawal of anti-epileptic drugs preconceptionally if she is seizure-free for more than 2 years. And it is not appropriate to withdraw any of the anti-epileptic drugs if she belongs to the category of juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. Juvenile myoclonic epilepsy is one category where the patient has to take epilepsy drugs lifelong irrespective of the frequency of the seizures. While withdrawing, she should be fully informed and a detailed counseling concerning the risk of stopping the medication should be taken, because the risk of recurrent seizures after 1 year is 25%, 80% of which will occur within the first 4 months after tapering the dose, and after 2 years, the incidence of seizures is 40%. And the risk of recurrent seizures is more if she has a structural lesion, if it is an early onset epilepsy, and if EEG also shows abnormal findings, and if her seizures are controlled by more than one anti-epileptic drug. Now coming to anti-epileptic drugs, there are two issues that must be considered regarding the administration of anti-epileptic drugs in women who want to become pregnant. Somebody saying something to me? Or do I continue?
Please continue, Doctor. Please continue.
Okay. So I was just saying that there are two issues that must be considered regarding the administration of anti-epileptic drugs. The first issue is the diagnosis of epilepsy well established? Because in some patients, routine continuous EEG monitoring may be warranted to confirm the diagnosis. The second issue is, does the patient require anti-epileptic drugs? And if so, is she on the most appropriate medication and at the minimum dose to maintain the seizure control? There are plenty of drugs since 1912. I have categorized them into 4 groups. The older ones, we are familiar with phenobarbital, phenytoin, diazepam, carbamazepine, and valproic acid. These drugs, because of the teratogenicity, are very rarely used these days, except for diazepam, where we can use it, IV diazepam in a case of status epilepticus, and phenobarbital is reserved mainly for children. The newer drugs, clobazam, lamotrigine. In this group, the lamotrigine is the one which is commonly used. Even newer ones are the levetiracetam and oxcarbazepine. And the newest ones, liposamide, rufinamide, icosapine, and ezogabine. Much is not known about this. More studies are needed about the newest group. So if we categorize them into these 4 groups, it will become easier for us to understand. This slide shows us the doses, the maternal effects, the fetal effects, and the malformations of the commonly used drugs. I'm not going into the details. One can go through the slides. So the newer anti-epileptic drugs, especially lamotrigine, levetiracetam, and oxcarbazepine, has no anti-folate effect. It does not interact with any drugs because it does not interact with the enzyme cytochrome P450. There are no arene oxide metabolites, and it can be safely used during pregnancy. The dosage and special notes are given in this table, which I think all of you can go through. And if you want, I can read it out. And the drugs, like the newest ones, where there is very little information regarding their pharmacokinetics and safety during pregnancy. So now, after discussing all this, my question is, which anti-epileptic drug is safe? Answer is none. All drugs are teratogenic, whether they are the newer ones or the newest ones. Risk for any one drug causing teratogenicity is in the tune of 5% to 7% against a background risk of 1.8%. Valproate has the highest risk, almost double the risk of other anti-epileptic drugs. And another important thing to note is the risk increases with the number of the drugs. That means if you need to give more than one drug to control epilepsy, the chances of teratogenicity directly increases. Like suppose we use Valproate without any other drug, the risk of teratogenicity is 6%. But if Valproate is added with any other drug, the teratogenicity risk increases to 9 to 12%, which is quite a big number. Another important thing is the teratogenicity of Valproate and lamotrigine is dose dependent. That means offspring of mother using 1 gram per day of Valproate has a 2-fold increased risk of congenital malformations compared to with those exposed to only 600 milligrams per day. Carbamazepine, though considered safe, can also cause increased risk of congenital malformations. So whenever possible, epilepsy should be managed using monotherapy. So please remember this picture of a single drug in our hand. There are number of congenital malformations, major and minor, a long list of it, but the main congenital malformations are in the form of neural tube defects, orofacial defects, congenital heart defects. We are all familiar with the fetal Haddon syndrome. And it is also important to note that if there is a family history of neural tube defects, both Valproate and carbamazepine should be avoided unless the patient's sugars cannot otherwise be controlled. So in established pregnancy, changes to alternate anti-epileptic drug therapy should not be undertaken. I repeat, should not be undertaken solely to reduce teratogenic risk, only because there are 3 reasons. First, changing anti-epileptic drug may precipitate a seizure. Second, overlapping of the anti-epileptic drugs during the change exposes the fetus to effects of an additional anti-epileptic drug. And third, there is limited advantage to changing anti-epileptic drugs if pregnancy has already been established for several weeks, because early organogenesis early in the very first few weeks of pregnancy. So the point not to change the anti-epileptic drug during pregnancy. Now coming to antenatal care, the most important concern is prevention of seizures. We need to take control of her nausea and vomiting so that she has adequate serum drug levels in her. We should avoid any stimuli which provoke this, and we should emphasize the compliance. Repeatedly at every visit of hers, we should ask these 3 points and make sure that it is taken care of. There is no need to change the anti-epileptic drug. Monotherapy at the lowest effective dose should be continued. In case large doses are needed, use frequent smaller doses or extended release formula. That means instead of a single dose, you can divide it into 2-3 doses to avoid high peak levels in the serum. And for monitoring, what is the lowest effective dose? It is preferable to be guided by the patient and her sugar frequency rather than by blood drug levels. But in some patients, blood drug levels may need to be done when there are very side effects and the patient is not responding in spite of increasing the dose. Now, how to go about in pregnancy? I have talked about so much about the drugs and everything, but just to minimize the confusion, this is the slide which is as a take-home message. If a pregnant patient comes to us, remember Valproate not to be used. The first preference is levetiracetam in a dose of 20 to 40 milligrams per kg. Since there is no interaction with any other drug or enzyme, it is quite safe with less teratogenicity as compared to the older drugs. Second preference is lamotrigine. The dose of lamotrigine is very variable. See, the range is from 1 to 50 milligrams per kg. So an average of 5 milligrams per kg is taken. And the commonest side effect to avoid this, the recommendation is to start slowly the dose of lamotrigine and then build her up. The third preference is oxcarbamazepine in a dose of 10 to 30 milligrams per kg. It causes less sedation than carbamazepine, hence it is preferred over carbamazepine. And the fourth preference is carbamazepine. In case one has to use valproate, patient is not responsive, decrease her dose and use the minimum dose of 600 milligrams per day. I would request all of you to please remember this slide. Women should be regularly seen in antenatal clinics and in neurological clinics. Dual tests and screening for fetal anomalies should be performed, including detailed anomaly scan and fetal echocardiography at 20 weeks of gestation. Close monitoring of fetal growth and well-being is to be done on each visit by ultrasound so as to fetal growth restriction. Other drugs besides anti-epileptic drugs are folic acid, which is to be continued throughout pregnancy. Women who are on phenytoin should be given 10 milligrams vitamin K orally each day after 36 weeks of pregnancy so as to prevent hemorrhagic disease of newborn. Some studies recommend adding selenium as a supplement to minimize radical-mediated damage. Now coming to intrapartum care, the first and the foremost thing is to reassure her that women with epilepsy can have an uncomplicated labor and delivery. Always deliver her in a hospital. Risk of seizures increases around the time of delivery. 1 to 2% of women with epilepsy will have a seizure during labor, and 1 to 2% will have one in the next 24 hours postpartum. Continue regular anti-epileptic drugs in labor. If during labor she cannot tolerate any oral drugs, same drugs can be given by IV preparation also. During labor, do not leave them unattended. If we want to take care of a pain, epidural analgesia is ideal, and it is in fact recommended because any kind of pain may stimulate a seizure. It is a non-provoking stimuli. There is no contraindication for use of any kind of induction agents with anti-epileptic drugs. Vaginal delivery is the aim, with cesarean delivery being indicated for the usual obstetric indications, or if the patient is in status epilepticus and is showing recurrent seizures. If seizures occur while laboring, we need to give them intravenous drugs. We need to support her with oxygen. We can give them diazepam 10 to 20 milligrams IV at a rate of 2 milligrams per minute. IV anti-epileptic drugs can also be started, any one of them, that is Levitra, Acetam, carbamazepine, valproate, or phenytoin. Valproate at this time is not harmful because whatever organogenesis has to take place has already taken place. So, habitual life of the mother is important. Uncontrolled repeated seizures are known as status epilepticus. Its frequency is around 1.8%. It is dangerous for both mother and fetus, and hence it should be treated vigorously. The management of status epilepticus is same as any other non-pregnant state. We need to give them intravenous 20 milligrams diazepam and phenytoin 50 milligrams per minute up to a maximum of 180 milligrams. Airway maintenance is very important, and any precipitating factor like hypoglycemia, infection should be taken care of energetically. For respiratory depression, we may need to take help of the anesthetist and the ICU specialist. Endotracheal intubation and positive pressure ventilation may be needed. So it is a multidisciplinary treatment. Neuromuscular blockage or general anesthesia may be required sometimes for uncontrolled seizures. Now postnatally, readjustment of the dose is to be done as lower doses of anticonvulsants are required postpartum. Blood levels of phenytoin and lamotrigine increase rapidly following delivery, but carbamazepine and valproate takes longer to return to preconception levels. and hence lamotrigine should be decreased relatively rapidly postpartum so as to maintain adequate blood levels of the drug. Vitamin K 1 milligram intramuscularly is given to all newborns to prevent hemorrhagic disease of the newborn. Breastfeeding is encouraged. Most anti-epileptic drugs are secreted in breast milk, no doubt, but the dose received by the baby is only a fraction, that is only 3 to 5% of the therapeutic level for the neonate. In any case, it is much less than that received in utero. Babies whose mother received phenobarbital and benzodiazepines in pregnancy may experience withdrawal symptoms and sedation, although this is rare with the newer anti-epileptic drugs. And preferably the breastfeed is given before rather than after taking the drug so as to avoid peak serum and breast milk levels. Certain safety strategies needs to be told to the patient. Patient should be well supported postnatally so as to ensure that any triggers such as sleep deprivation, stress and pain are minimized. Baby should preferably be nursed on the floor if the mother is doing so, and baby should be laid down immediately if there is a warning aura. Mother should be informed about the symptoms and provided with contact details for any assistance, and should also be screened for postpartum depression. Contraception, another very important issue. Anti-epileptic drugs cause stimulation of hepatic enzymes. So contraceptive efficacy of combined oral contraceptives, Minipill and Depo-Provera is reduced. So what do? If patient needs combined pill, we need to give at least 50 micrograms of estrogen. That means if you have a 30 micrograms, we can give 2 tablets together. Depo-Provera should be given every 10 weeks instead of 12 weeks. Copper T and levonorgestrel intrauterine system, LNG, is ideal and its efficacy is not affected by liver enzymes. So to conclude, all women receiving anti-epileptic drugs should receive pre-pregnancy counseling and be advised to take folic acid 5 milligrams 3 months prior to conception. Most anti-epileptic drugs are teratogenetic. Risk is definitely lower with monotherapy rather than polytherapy and highest with sodium valproate. Drug of choice in pregnancy is levetiracetam. Prenatal screening for congenital anomalies must be offered mandatory. In most cases, the frequency of seizures is not altered by pregnancy, provided there is a good compliance on side of the patient. Thank you all very much. And you should let a patient know that there is something inside her that is greater than any obstacle. Thank you all. Any questions?
It was a fantastic presentation, Dr. Jyoti, as always. Dr. Uma,
definitely epilepsy is a challenging situation, and especially during pregnancy. So before pregnancy, patient needs to be stabilized before she's asked that she can conceive, and she should be told what drugs and all those. Jyoti very nicely highlighted what drugs can cause lesser, though most of the drugs cause malformations, but there are drugs and the doses which needs to be accordingly done. It's very nicely covered, and it's really one needs to counsel the patient before she gets pregnant. And so pre-pregnancy level also is very important. Counseling is very important.
Thank you, ma'am. The compliance and the counseling is very important.
Very important.
Compliance from the patient side and counseling from the doctor side so as to not to increase the frequency of the seizures. You should be reassured every time.
Thank you.
Dr. Ila? Dr. Ila, आपके comments?
Thank you, Dr. Ila. आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही, Ila, मुझे. If you have any question, you can pass it on.